Welcome to this meeting of the Pyrenees Shire Council, the ordinary meeting, 20th of April 2026. Councillors will today deliberate and decide on a range of matters relevant to the work of Council in its communities for the welfare of the people of Pyrenees. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for this ordinary council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online. Anyone who is invited to read out a question or make a submission will be recorded, and their voice, image and comments will form part of that live stream and recording. The chair and or the CEO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed appropriate. That may include where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published. The live stream will stop prior to the closed section of the meeting and will be recommenced for the conclusion of the meeting. The public is able to view this live stream at our website at www.pyrenees.vic.gov.au. Should technical issues prevent the continuation of the live stream, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum can be maintained, and where possible, a recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Where a quorum cannot be maintained, the meeting will be adjourned until the issue is resolved or the meeting postponed to another time and date in accordance with the Council's governance rules. We acknowledge the people past and present of the Wadawurrung, Jar Jalwarung, Eastern Ma, Watchabollock, Jardwa, Jardwa Jali, Wirragai and Jupagok nations whose lands and waters the Pyrenees Shire operates on. We pay our respects to their ancestors and elders and recognise and respect their customs, stewardship and continuing connection to country. No apologies. Is there any notice of disclosure of interest by councillors or officers? Mr Gowans?
I have a direct interest in item 11.3.4 emergency management roles.
Thank you, Mr Gowans. Item 6, confirmation of the previous minutes. There's a recommendation there, councillors, to have someone to move that. Councillor Keogh, a seconder. Councillor Phelan, all those in favour? Thank you. There was no business arising or any items taken on notice from the previous meeting held on the 16th of March 2026. Members of the community are encouraged to participate in public ordinary council meetings by asking questions or presenting a submission. This can be done by attending in person or by submitting in writing prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting, online through the council's website, by mail or hand delivered. If a question or submission is submitted in writing, this will be read by the chair during public participation, stating the person's name and township. Question time will be held first, followed by public submissions. 30 minutes is allowed for the total period of public participation. Time extensions may be allowed at the discretion of the chair, subject to the provisions of the governance rules. A person may ask a maximum of 2 questions at any one meeting. The chair will allocate a maximum of 5 minutes to each person who wishes to address council or ask questions. The chair, councillor or council officer to whom a question is referred may immediately answer the question or take the question on notice for answering at a later date. There will be no discussion or debate with public attendees. However, councillors may ask questions of the attendee for clarification. Is there any questions from the gallery? Mr Davey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My first question is, with no malice involved, I'm wondering why council this size would appoint an assistant mayor when money's tight, and I just don't understand what obligation that would make that person have.
Would you answer that, Mr Moore?
Yep. Thank you, Mr Davey, for that question. I'll do my best to answer. Essentially, the Local Government Act does provide for the opportunity for council to appoint a deputy mayor. Certainly, a council is required to have a mayor. It is an option for a council to have a deputy mayor. The purpose of having a deputy mayor is to provide an alternative for representation when the mayor is unavailable, and also it is an opportunity for a councillor to get an experience of some of the activities involved in being a mayor for their professional development, to provide an avenue for future mayor potentially. It's not uncommon for councils to have deputy mayor, and as you perhaps appreciate, the role of mayor can at times become quite demanding, and it's an avenue for being able to sort of share the load. But it is an option for council. There is a purpose and there's an avenue for it, obviously. But at the end of the day, it is also a decision of the council. The council has resolved that as at the last statutory meeting. So, it is. I hope that provides some sort of context for you. And it is an option available. There's a legal capacity for it, and it's not uncommon in councils to have a deputy mayor. Albeit most of those larger metropolitan councils certainly have deputy mayors, but a number of rural councils also do have deputy mayors. So hope that provides some context.
Thank you. Who is the deputy mayor, by the way?
Councillor Wardlaw.
Oh, there you go.
Any further questions from the gallery? Mr. David?
I have a second question, and this is, as I said, with no malice. Unfortunately, as a scientist, I'm a strong communicator. And I'm finding it difficult to get responses and answers from councillors on their phone. It's been going on quite some time. And is there something wrong with the phone systems? Are they not adequate? Are the phones not good enough? Are the message banks not right? I don't know. But I even remember the connectivity we had. It was incredible so many times. And it definitely wasn't Councillor Keogh's fault. So I'm just hoping the council can look at that as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Davey. I do note that I certainly have had connectivity issues, and probably where I live, the phone service there is quite poor, but I certainly have.
Monaco's okay though, isn't it?
Pardon? Yeah. I certainly do at times have difficulty. Some days are better than others, and I know other councillors have had connectivity issues too, but it's something we have raised internally, and we'll continue to look at that and make sure that we try and get the best coverage so we can provide that service.
And just on that, as we have a discussion about with the safety networks that we need to have, obviously, because we have had some terrible breaches in security. That can be another hindrance when you're also trying to work with satellite. But that's very common, that understand it too. But again, something I guess in regional areas that you need to keep that in hand for to get better coverage as well. But yeah, but we do that to protect people's confidentiality too, which is very important as we know.
Good questions though, thank you, Mr. Davey. That takes us to item 9.1, councillor activity reports. I'll take that as read. Recommendation that council notes this report. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Phelan, seconded Councillor Toll. All those in favour? Thank you. 10.1, Assembly of Councillors. I'll take that as read. Officer recommendation that council notes the report. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Keogh, seconded Councillor Toll. All those in favour? Thank you. This takes us to item 11.1, items for decision, economic development and tourism. Mr. Nolan, I think that's with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I certainly don't propose to go through this report in a great deal of detail. There's quite a lot of information in this report, which provides a snapshot of the state of the economy that we're in currently and the recent period of activity. For those online that might not have access to the agenda, it does cover some commentary around the development of the Pyrenees Economic Development and Investment Attraction Strategy, which is one of the pillars of the council plan, which is currently underway. And also the Central Highlands Regional Economic Development Strategy, there's reference to that. The report talks about population growth, and you'll note from that that there's been a steady growth over the last 10 years of about 1.08% population growth, just approaching 8,000 people in the Shire. There's information there about building statistics and building approvals, and you see that there's been some growth in that over the last 10-year period, and a little drop off in the last 2 years in terms of the residential development. You'll see business counts, that the number of businesses within the Shire is in that area of 890, which has been a pretty stable sort of figure over recent years. The growth essentially has been in the amount of gross regional product produced. So this is what is produced within the Shire. You see there's a strong amount of growth in gross regional product, and the output is essentially coming from the key propulsive sectors of agriculture, construction, and then wine. And you can see that from the report, the graphs sort of show the significant increase in productivity from the agriculture sector. Furthermore, there's some commentary around the agriculture sector, and there's reference to the significant impact of drought on agriculture and some of the activity that's occurring in supporting our farming community through drought. The seasonal rainfall forecast for May to July in the coming year is below average at this point in time. And of course, we're all aware of the fuel crisis and the current economic strain for our farming community as a result of the fuel supply and fuel pricing, as well as access to urea and fertiliser. Southern Wimmera Northern Pyrenees Water Supply Project, Council received a briefing this afternoon from GWM Water, and there's a status report in respect of that project here, which is a significant long-term project and some of Council's investment in the future. A number of other economic development projects that the team are working on currently are also referenced here, including the business-friendly council program, which is to support our business community. Fire recovery and drought recovery are a significant component of the business unit's work over the recent months as well. And there's also a report here about economic activity associated with events across the Shire, and councillors will be able to speak to those events themselves and have done in recent weeks. There are a number of key initiatives from a business support perspective that are also outlined in that report. I'll draw attention to the Waterloo fixed wireless tower. So obviously connectivity and communications are important for business and our economic growth, and it's pleasing to see a recent announcement by NBN in respect of commitment to a fixed wireless tower at Waterloo. From a tourism perspective, there's a number of sort of initiatives that are outlined in this report. I won't speak to those in any great detail. Councillors essentially have the information there, and there are a number of recommendations that flow from that report. The recommendations are, firstly, that Council notes the report. Secondly, that Council continues its advocacy for a $5 million funding required to progress the Southern Wimmera and North East Pyrenees Water Supply Project. And that is to enable that project to be shovel ready. Details of that in the report. Thirdly, the Council gives consideration to the role of concierge officer in the 26-27 budget to optimise the benefits of the business-friendly council. So that's a consideration for Council when it comes to finalising the budget. Obviously, times are tough. Funding is difficult to come by. and there's significant impacts as a result of the fuel crisis on council's sustainability. So that will be something for council to consider around the budget period. And then fourthly, that council receives a further report on the economic development strategy at the next council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Councillor's got a recommendation there. Someone move that. Councillor Keogh, we've got a seconder. Councillor Wardlaw. Councillor Keogh, would you like to speak to that?
Sorry, just getting my microphone on. No, just that thank you for the comprehensive report. Just one thing I do want to highlight in our recommendation is that ongoing advocacy to access that $5 million funding for the water supply project. It's a vital project that can really help to drought-proof that end of that area of our shire, and a really important one too as part of a greater economic strategy. Thank you.
Councillor Woodall.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with the report. It's got a lot of information in it. I did go through it quite deeply. I just noticed a couple of things that in the last 3 years, there's been no increase in employment for the past 3 years in the Shire, which I really think we need to look at. There's got to be ways that we can find jobs for people somehow. Considering that over the last 10 years, we've increased the population by about 800. Then also with the gross regional product being our biggest area in agriculture, I just think we really need to support the farmers in these difficult times. And especially since we can see we're not going to have a good year weather-wise, where we've gone back to an El Nino and things are going to be dry. It's sort of heading towards, long-range forecasts are heading towards the 1982-83 drought again. So I just think we need to keep that in mind and really support that area, because we can't afford to lose the income that comes into the community as well. So thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak to that report? Councillor Fielder.
My first comment is more a question. I just want a clarification on whether the key industry sectors, propulsive sectors, if that's what they are referred to, and Councillor Wardlaw has just referred to agriculture. Does that include grape growing in the agricultural sector? So the winemaking process is separate to the grape growing process.
Good question.
Yeah, so there's grape growing and then there's wine manufacturing. I'm not actually sure if the grape growing is part of the agriculture statistics or whether it's part of the wine, spirits and tobacco. But based on the figures there, I suspect that the wine growing is part of agriculture and the wine, spirits and tobacco component is the manufacturing process.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Nolan. I think another important point to note, in addition to what Councillor Wardlaw has already mentioned, is just looking at the most visited pages on the Pyrenees website, and that is very telling. So what are people looking for? They're looking for wineries, they're looking for what's on, they're looking for accommodation, they're looking for food, and they're looking for the beautiful free camping option down at Avoca. So that's telling us what will bring people to the Pyrenees Shire, and bringing visitors brings jobs. Also noting that very disappointing jobs growth that Councillor Wardlaw's referred to. Thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak on that? Sorry, go on.
Can I
Go on.
sorry, thank you, through you again. I just forgot one thing as well. I'm also looking at the business support overview, and I'm just curious, it's not really a question, it's just me speaking to you, why we're not getting the engagement we want from people. With that, like only 2 participants attending things, and you know, why are we not hitting the mark in these sort of areas? And I know a lot of effort goes in behind the scenes to create these events, or to, you know, get people to go along, but why are we just not getting the interest we need? You know, there must be something we're missing, and I just think that's something to take note of and try to work towards in the future. And I know we've talked about this business concierge thing, employment, someone in the Shire to do that, to work in that area, to work with businesses. But I think, you know, if the businesses aren't expanding, you know, and if we're not employing more people and we don't have enough people, it's actually telling us here that there's not enough people to go to these events because they're stuck back at home working, you know, they can't get away, they can't. So is it worth spending 70,000 on an employee? We're still not hitting the mark. We've got to develop the businesses before we can worry about those things. So that's just my take on that part of the report.
Thank you.
Can I just
Councillor, yes.
add to that? Sorry, councillor Wardlaw's reminded me that that was something I wanted to just comment on as well. I know that as a council, we've previously given our strong support for the concept of a business kind of concierge facility within the council, but I too am questioning whether that is money that is well spent at the moment. I think we need to have a lot of enabling conditions in place within the council to actually make that investment an effective one. And so perhaps we're not quite ready for that investment at this stage, would be my view. Thank you.
Thank you. Really good conversation, really good points that you make, councillors. And I think there's a lot in that report there that we need to take notice of, the stuff right before our eyes, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel, it's there, but we need to make the right decisions around it. So really, really good conversation, and it's so important because we need to get it right and we need to listen to people to make sure we get it right. So really good points. So all those in favour? Thank you. 11.1.2, Beaufort Lake Caravan Park, 2026-27 fees and charges, Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, effectively, this is to seek council support for an increase in the caravan park fees, generally consistent with CPI increase rounded. So the information is there in front of you, and the recommendation seeks council to endorse the proposed increase.
So councillors, we've got a recommendation there. We've got a mover for those fees. Councillor Wardlaw, a seconder. Councillor Phelan, Councillor Wardlaw, would you like to speak to that? Councillor Phelan, any councillor wish to speak to that? Councillor Toll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ray, for doing this thing and moving the prices up in CPI. The CPI doesn't reflect our $1 million investment into the caravan park in the last 12 months. Should we be seeking to increase them a little bit more, just to edge a little of that back? I know it's only $2 or $3 a night, but if we spent the money, we should be getting somewhere close to it.
If you want to respond to that. I do notice that the cost increases are quite modest. I just wonder if it would have an effect if we did it in a more lump sum, if that would have an effect on the attendance or the usage rate of the caravan park. Bearing in mind what you say, Councillor Toll, it is important. We've put a lot of money in there. We need to get it back, but I don't think we can get it all back in one hit. So I think those increases are modest and probably a bit of thought's gone in. Councillor Wardlaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only comment on that is perhaps it's something I totally agree. I think at some stage it should go up a bit more. I'd like to round those figures up, but I just feel that perhaps at this point in time, with the economy the way it is, we'd be a bit kinder just to leave it at minimal this year, and we'll reassess it next year. And definitely it does need, they do need to go up because they're fairly good prices across the board. I've seen a lot worse than that. So, but I just think perhaps this financial year we may be better off just going with the CPI.
Thank you. Any other councillors? All those in favour? Thank you. 11.2.1 Asset Development Services, Victoria's Climate Change Strategy 2026 to 2030. Mr. Gowans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The intent of this report is to inform Council of the key impacts of climate change on the Pyrenees Shire Council and outline associated opportunities and strategic responses identified in Victoria's Climate Change Strategy 2026 to 2030. Obviously, the Victorian Government's just released this strategy, and the strategy recognises that climate change is already impacting Victoria with increasing temperatures, more frequent and intense extreme weather events, and changing rainfall patterns. These impacts are particularly significant for regional and rural municipalities where economies, infrastructure and communities are closely linked to climate-sensitive sectors such as transport and agriculture. Given the distinct challenges faced by regional and rural councils in responding to climate change, it is important that Council continues to advocate for targeted funding through regional partnerships such as the Central Victorian Greenhouse Alliance to ensure local priorities are effectively addressed. Climate change presents increasing and complex challenges for Pyrenees Shire. Continued advocacy, strategic planning and partnerships are important to ensure Council is well positioned to manage risks and realise opportunities for the community. It's the Office's recommendation that Council acknowledges the range of risks and initiatives contained within the Victorian Climate Change Strategy 2026-2030 and continues to advocate for targeted funding through regional partnerships such as the Central Victorian Greenhouse Alliance to ensure local priorities relating to climate change mitigation are effectively addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Gowns. Council's got a recommendation. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Phelan, we've got a seconder. Councillor Toll. Councillor Phelan, do you wish to speak to that? Councillor Toll. Any councillors wish to speak to that item? All those in favour? Thank you. 11.3.1 Recovery Plan 2026 Stratham Fire. Ms Erdity, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to approve a draft fire recovery plan for the Stratham Scrub Grass Fire, which started on the 9th of January 2026. A detailed report of the fire was provided to Council at the February 2026 Ordinary Meeting of Council, which outlined the impacted communities within the Pyrenees Shire. Recovery and further recovery planning is now underway, and a draft recovery plan has been provided as a separate attachment. The plan provides some context and background information regarding the event, initial recovery activities, the agencies that will be involved in recovery activities, and the internal structure to oversee the implementation of the plan. It is worth recognising that this plan is Council's recovery plan, and this sits alongside of the Economic and Community Recovery Network Recovery Action Plan, which has been developed by the network comprising the various agencies, community and three councils. It is important to note that the extent to which recovery activities can be delivered is dependent upon available funding. Given the dynamic nature of disaster recovery, it will be necessary to make changes to the plan to reflect the changing needs of impacted communities. The plan has been designed to evolve over time and has the community at its core. It's therefore the Council recommendation that Council 1 approves the draft fire recovery plan with or without any changes that may be needed, noting the dynamic nature of the recovery activity, and 2, that a status update of the fire recovery plan be brought to Council meeting in 3 months' time.
Thank you, Ms Erdity. Council's got a recommendation there. Someone like to move that? Councillor Kerr, a seconder. Councillor Wardlaw. Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak?
I would just like to speak again, being able to work on that draft and make sure we ensure practices that best help us to help our community in these moments is really important, and that we have that information to move forward as we're preparing to recover, such as our community centres, but also all our individual residents, that they can meet the needs that they need to. And a report like this is vital for that. So thank you for the work that's gone into it. And we'll go into it.
So any other councillors wish to speak to that? Thank you. I just think a lot of times we see with recovery activities in particular and response activities, they're ahead of the game at the local level, so to speak, but we're held up waiting for funding constantly for funding to be provided, because unfortunately, these incidents are very, very expensive anyway. Look at it, not just to council, but to the community and individuals respectfully. So, we'll keep advocating for the funding to be not just made available, but made available in a more timely manner so that we can get that recovery and get things back to normal as quick as we possibly can. So rest assured we'll continue that advocacy. All those in favour? Thank you. 11.3.2 Audit and Risk Committee Biannual Report. Ms Erdity, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide the council with an update of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting M019 held on the 17th of March 2026. Drafted minutes of the meeting have been issued to members for approval. However, in accordance with the Charter, the chairperson is required to provide a biannual report to the committee that is made available to the council at the March meeting, which has now attached for councillor awareness. It's therefore offers a recommendation that council acknowledges and thanks the chairperson, Mr Rod Proxon, for his biannual report, and 2, notes the activities of the Audit and Risk Committee contained within the report.
Thank you, Ms Erdity. Council's got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Woodall, seconder. Councillor Toll. Anyone wish to speak to that?
No, thank you.
No? All those in favour? Thank you. 11.3.3 Council Plan 2025 to 29 Review of Delivery. Ms Erdity.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is for council to consider the previous progress reports against the council plan 2025 to 2029 and consider officer recommendations as to proposed changes to timing of delivery as a result of rediversion of resources to the 2026 Stratham fire and budget constraints as a result of no available funding streams. In accordance with the Local Government Act, Council adopted the plan in June and the suite of initiatives that underpinned it within September. Since this time, Council has experienced a further emergency event, being the Stratham fire, which occurred in January 2026. This event has had an impact to Council officers being able to focus on defined business as usual, re-diverting attention to support the recovery of the event. In addition to this, there has also been some initiatives identified within year 1 of the plan, which were subject to funding, which as yet has not been able to be secured, ultimately impacting on Council's ability to deliver against the initiative. Furthermore, other factors impacting Council's financial sustainability reported to the March Council meeting will require operational savings in future years unless additional revenue is secured. To realise these savings, Council will need to review a range of non-mandatory services during the 26-27 year. This matter foreshadows a further adjustment that will be needed to the Council plan. It's therefore the Office of Recommendation that Council 1 acknowledges that external factors beyond its direct control have emerged since the initial adoption of the Council plan, including the January 2026 fire and the ability to secure external funding sources for some initiatives. 2, resolves to adjust the timing of the initiatives identified in the attached report, which will only be partially delivered or deferred from the current 25-26 financial year. And 3, continues to receive quarterly progress updates on the 25-26 initiatives.
Thank you, Ms Erdity. Councillor's got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Toll, seconded. Councillor Kerr. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Toll?
I think what we should be looking at as a council and an organisation is probably appointing someone as a full-time emergency management role. We've seen in the past that every 2 or 3 years we've got a situation that goes back to our climate change. It goes to the next point of discussion we're going to have. Rather than redeploying people out of the office doing their jobs, if we had someone in there updating manuals and whatever, so not when and if we get a fire, or sorry, if we get another fire, when we get another fire, when we get another flood, that person's there ready to go, pull the manuals off the shelf and roll out the thing. But yeah, agree with what you're saying, but I think it's something we should be looking at in the environment that we live.
Any other councillor wish to speak to that? Councillor Wardlaw?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Actually would like to comment on what Simon said, and it's not only your fires and things. I mean, we had that big car accident down the road. You know, this person could have been the mediator there. You know, I know how much work Councillor Kehoe put in at the time, but if she'd had someone beside her, you know, it just would have been really good. Someone with the answers as well. I know you have answers, but you know, the direct contacts and things like that. So I actually think that that's something to really consider moving forward. We do have a lot of things go wrong in our lovely Shire, so good point.
Any other councillors wish to speak to that? I think the other thing we need to do, I certainly agree with all those comments and councillors' idea of a full-time emergency management role. The other issue is I think we need to get much better at sharing resources across the sector, because a lot of the rural councils are in the same position as us. We just simply haven't got the staff. So if we've got something going on, we can get some staff from somewhere else. And if we haven't got anything going, perhaps we can send some to them. The problem with this incident down at Stratham is it affected 3 councils. So the 3 councils that are effectively neighbouring councils are effectively deploying resources there. So it's difficult to do that, but doing the best with what we can. So, but it's something we continually need to look at. So, and it just goes without saying we're in really tough times. So, you know, you make the plan with all best intentions to deliver it and the best we can and on time and on budget. But we're in exceptional times, and that means we have to make some exceptional decisions in relation to moving forward and some exceptional changes that we wouldn't ordinarily make. So, but we'll give them all due consideration before we do make those changes. So, councillors, all those in favour? Thank you. 11.3.4 emergency management role, Ms Erdity. Thank you, Mr Gowan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council endorsement of the appointment of the mandated emergency management role of Municipal Emergency Management Officer, AMEMO. The Emergency Management Act 2013 requires councils to appoint a Municipal Emergency Management Officer. Recent changes in staff require council to nominate another officer to take the position. It is therefore the officer recommendation that Council 1 appoints the Director Assets and Development Services as the Municipal Emergency Management Officer, the MEMO, and 2 appoints the Risk Management Coordinator as the Deputy Municipal Emergency Management Officer.
Thank you, Ms Erdity. Thank you. We've got a seconder.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I thought Simon, sorry.
Would you like to speak to that? Any councillors wish to speak to that? I think it's worth noting, though, that one of our advocacy pitches is to actually advocate to the government for additional funding to have a municipal emergency resource officer full-time on the council. And I think we need to really push that hard because, unfortunately, we've seen our fair share of incidents over the last several years. So we can certainly, probably, unfortunately, justify that we do need someone in that role full time, so that it doesn't take away staff from their business as usual duties, and which is quite disruptive to a small council. So, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. 11.3.5, NP 43.
Well, I'll just wrap it up.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr Gowan. 11.3.5, NP 43, Marilyn Rise. Ms Erdity, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to finalise the naming process for an unnamed road between Johnson's Road and Anderson's Road in Amphitheatre. In October 2023, Council initiated community consultation regarding the naming of the currently unnamed road connecting Johnson's and Anderson's Road in Amphitheatre. A limited number of submissions were received, with Marilyn Rise as identified as the preferred option based on community feedback and Marilyn's recognised connection to the local area. It is noted that one residential property will require readdressing, or alternatively, the allocation of a secondary address upon finalisation of the road naming. Unnamed roads pose avoidable risks to public safety, service delivery and administrative accuracy. Formalising the proposed road name Marilyn Rise will significantly support emergency services by enabling accurate location identification and faster response times. It's therefore the Office of Recommendation that Council 1 adopts the name Marilyn Rise, which has historical ties to the area, and 2, Council 4 to report to the Register of Geographic Names for consideration and gazettal of the name Marilyn Rise.
Thank you, Ms Erden. Councillor's got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Move, Councillor Kerr, second. Thank you, Councillor Phelan. Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak to that?
No, but again, I think it's bringing up some great naming choices and focusing on people that are very significant to our community.
Any other councillors wish to speak to that? All those in favour? Thank you. 11.3.6 Volunteer Asset Committee Report. Ms Erdedy, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to consider how we continue supporting volunteer committees that manage state-owned community assets that council have historically insured, whilst recognising the initial intent of earlier resolutions to hold the state accountable for state-owned community assets. Since the previous decision, officers have engaged with their existing insurer and sought clarification as to what would be required to ensure coverage of state-owned committee of management properties, and they've responded as follows. The determining factor is not ownership alone, but whether council has responsibility for insuring the asset. Where council is responsible for the building insurance and the asset is declared on council's asset register and policy schedule, council can lodge a claim under the insurance policy. Information regarding the application of the current policy is also contained in the confidential JLT report, which is circulated. It is worth noting that council is currently going through a Procurement Australia tender process to more broadly test the market as to the potential policy options and savings beyond the sector-wide standard insurance program. Based on the above, taking the advice of our existing insurer and based on progress of existing insurance coverage, council needs to consider the short-term, medium-term and longer-term solutions which are outlined within the body of this report. It is therefore the officer's recommendation that Council 1 resolves to extend insurance coverage to state government properties that have volunteer committees appointed to include the 26-27 financial year to allow more time to work towards medium and longer term solutions. 2, authorise officers to proceed with other documented proposed options to enable sustainable insurance coverage options for state government properties where there have been community committees of management appointed. And 3, ensure that any change in insurer continues to provide the same coverage of state-owned assets where council deem it appropriate to continue insuring and retain asset on insurance register.
Thank you, Ms Erdedy. Councillor's got a recommendation there, so move it, Councillor Toll. And you've got a seconder, Councillor Kerr. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Toll?
Yes, look, I'd like to thank the office for doing a lot of work on this. I was strongly against paying for something that the state government owns. And I still am, put that on record. If it's a government-owned asset, they should be paying to insure it, not the Shire, not the small community groups. It's their asset. But look, thank you for getting clarification that in the event of something, we will be covered and not left hanging out to dry. So it's a breath of relief for our communities. And I was only worried about the waste of money, but it's comforting to know that they will be covered. So thank you.
Councillor Kerr.
Just to second that, but I think it's most important that we're able to support our community groups because of what they do is invaluable. You can't even put a monetary amount on that. So just to be able to protect them and our communities, it's vital. So thank you again for that work.
Councillor Woodward.
I'd like to agree with everything that's been said there, but I'd also like to add that hopefully depending on what happens in the future, this can be continued on for further years to take the stress off everyone if it's still working. You know, as long as it's actually covering what needs to be covered, then I'd be all for it continuing further into the future.
Any other councillor Phelan?
And thank you. I'm also really pleased that there is an outcome for the community, that reassurance for the community, and that we will in fact be covered should we put forward insurance claims, or we're not ruled out from insurance claims because we don't own the asset. Just the point on further options, asset rationalisation and review. It's noted that that is a long-term timeline and that review be conducted with state committees and council. So I'm presuming the state committees means the committees of management in communities. Is that correct? Or is this direct with state government?
Through you, Mr Mayor. It'll be a combination of both, but it will absolutely involve the delegated committees so that they're aware of what the path forward looks like.
Excellent, thank you. And can I just add to that, it would be, I think, incredibly beneficial to have the assets reviewed on not an asset by asset basis, but on a township basis. So if there are, for example, 4 DECA assets in one township, that the community members in that township need to have input into what are the priority assets if there is going to be some rationalisation. Thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak to that? All very good points made, and I agree that we shouldn't be paying essentially for an asset that's not ours, but until we come up with that solution, which is, I don't think is going to be easy or necessarily quickly forthcoming, we'll agree to ensure those facilities. And I think that's just gives those small committees who do such a wonderful job, most of it volunteer, if not all of it volunteer, it just gives them a bit of breathing space and a level of relief that they are insured for at least the next 12 months. So that's really, and we'll keep working in the background to see if we can come up with a really viable solution for everybody. So all those in favour? Thank you. 11.3.7 financial report, March 31, 2026. Ms Erdity.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide the council with an update on financial performance for the period 1 July 2025 to the 31st of March 2026. Oversights of the current reporting period include future borrowings were planned for the final $625,000 council contribution for infrastructure works relating to the Burke Street Workers Accommodation project, originally planned for the 26-27 budget. Whilst the contribution is $625,000, $125,000 is being provided through council's infrastructure works, leaving the remaining $500,000. With the current state of the economy and the expectation that interest rates will continue to rise throughout 26-27, it is thought to borrow now would result in future savings to council. Other oversights are defined within the body of this report, and I won't speak to all of them, but it is an improvement on collection and progress towards outstanding rates being undertaken. It's therefore the Office of Recommendation that Council 1 receives and notes the financial performance report for the period 1 July 2025 to 31 March 2026 and the projected forecast for the year. And 2, resolves to borrow $500,000 from the budget allocation of $1 million for the council contribution of infrastructure works associated with the Burke Street Workers Accommodation project.
Thank you, Ms Erdity. Councillor's got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Councillor, thank you, Councillor Ward. Seconded. Councillor Keogh. Councillor Wardlaw, would you like to speak to that?
No.
Councillor Keogh. Any councillors wish to speak to that matter? No. All those in favour? Thank you. 11.3.8 2025-26 end of season pool report. Ms Erdity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide a summary of the 25-26 pool season, including participation, operational outcomes, community feedback, and an update on council's ongoing aquatic planning process. Overall, the season delivered positive outcomes through effective collaboration between council, the service provider, and local community groups, with further details documented throughout the report. Just a couple of matters to highlight in relation to the management of pool operations. The current service contract with Belgravia Leisure expires on the 30th of August 2026. In preparation for 26-27, Council has commenced a swimming pool service delivery options review via an independent specialist consultant. This review will provide an assessment of current service performance, alternative service delivery models, operational and financial benchmarking, and stakeholder and community input. From a strategic planning perspective, officers are progressing a coordinated strategic review of pools through two key work streams. One being the invasive inspection and asset audits, which will provide evidence of asset conditions, lifespan, and renewal priorities. And two, the service delivery option review that I've just spoken to. The integration of these work streams will provide council with the evidence required to make informed decisions, balancing community needs, financial sustainability, and asset risk. Future financial risk. While officers have effectively managed expenditure throughout the 25-26 season, potential financial considerations remain regarding invasive inspections and subsequent works that may be required into the future. Council recognises the significant social, health and recreational value of public swimming pools and continues to invest in their seasonal delivery. It's therefore the officer recommendation that Council 1 receives and notes the end of year pool report for the 25-26 season, and 2 seeks a further report for both the operational model and outcome of invasive testing.
Thank you, Ms Erdy. Councillor's got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move it? Thank you, Councillor Phelan. Seconder, Councillor Toll. Councillor Phelan, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, just really pleased to see the increased usage of the pools, particularly, of course, in the very little town of Landsborough. We can see that participation, visitation has really grown over the last couple of years, and I think it speaks to how important these assets are in townships where there is very little on offer for residents. So hoping that we can continue to support the pools, which is such a vital community asset, such a loved community asset. And I look forward to further reports coming to council. Thank you.
Councillor Toll, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm excited that we're getting someone to look at our operating costs of the pool. So I doubt whether it costs me it's $532,000 to run a pool for a few months, just based on my own at home. But I haven't got 8,883 people coming to swim in it. But when we've got a population of 8,000 people, or we've got 8,083 visits, it shows how important they are to the community, and we've got to do everything we can to maintain them, keep them open and provide that facility for our community. And very encouraging to see Landsborough up to 786 people. Great work.
Any other councillors? Councillor Ward.
I'd just like to commend all the committees, the hardworking locals that have put their efforts in at each of these pools, and the young lady from Avoca who managed the 3 pools, Jacqueline Humphrey, has done a fabulous job, and she puts her heart and soul into it. I'm actually pretty impressed also with the maintenance costs, considering the panic at the start of the year. We were a bit worried about the Avoca pool and a few things, but they've managed to get it open and only blown out the budget by 10,000, which could have been way worse, So yeah, great job, everybody.
Yeah, Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, just to reiterate again what everyone said, our pools are incredibly valuable assets and they're very, very loved assets in our communities. And I think in regional areas, they're an asset that we really want to be able to go above and beyond to be able to protect and be able to continue to use. I do send out huge thanks again and all the young ones that are volunteering and being learning how to and getting paid as lifeguards, as event support people and all those other volunteers that run barbecues and things like that, because they do create an incredible community space, and particularly over that Christmas period when a lot of local kids need somewhere and need that support both emotionally and mentally as well. So thank you to that. But again, thank you. I know we do need to look at these financial risks, but it is something we need to weigh up to the social value that we have in these. The other query I had, and I know Miss Energy has already filled me in on this, but I do know we had a number of people get involved in our online feedback option as well this time as well. So it'll be really interesting to see the responses from that and how that helps us to strategically move forward as well. So thank you for that. No response needed there.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillor, or queries? No. As Councillor Phelan said, those assets are very much loved and guarded by their respective communities, and it's a constant theme of conversation about the pools, regardless of the time of year. So, and I'd just like to thank the Friends of the Pool Committees, and they do so much throughout the season and even off season, behind the scenes. Again, all volunteer work. So, so much that goes on behind the scenes that we don't see, but it helps in so much of a way. So all those in favour of that recommendation, thank you. 11.3.9 NP 52 proposal to name unnamed road off Hill Street and Callister Street, Beaufort as Mabel Court. Mr. Erdity, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to finalise the naming process for an unnamed road off Hill Street and Callister Street, Beaufort. At the ordinary meeting of Council on the 16th of February 2026, Council resolved to commence the process for the naming of unnamed road off Hill and Callister Streets in Beaufort to Mabel Court. There have been no submissions pertaining to this naming proposal received by Council to date. Therefore, the Office of Recommendation that Council 1 adopts the name Mabel Court, which has historical ties to the area, and 2 forwards a report to the Register of Geographic Names for consideration of the name Mabel Court.
Mr. Erdity, councillors, we've got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Kerr, second Councillor Toll. Any councillors wish to speak to that? No? All those in favour? Thank you. 11.4.1 Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly. Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek some direction from Council in respect of representation at the National General Assembly of Local Governments in Canberra in June. Council have traditionally provided representation at the NGA. Essentially, the purpose of the General Assembly is for participation at a national level in debate on issues that affect the sector nationally, and particularly in respect of motions that are brought forward by member councils. And also it has been an opportunity for council to advocate government whilst in Canberra. This year there is a parliamentary sitting at both houses scheduled between the 22nd and 25th of June. And traditionally, it's been an opportunity for councils as individuals and as groups of councils to advocate with members of parliament whilst they're in Canberra. The cost associated with attendance is in the order of about $2,500 per participant, having regard to participation costs, transport, flights, accommodation, etc. And Council's recommendation is that Council supports the participation of the Mayor and or Deputy Mayor and the Chief Executive or Delegate to attend the ALGA National General Assembly and Conference from the 23rd to the 25th of June 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Councillor's got a recommendation there. Would anyone like to move that? Councillor Toll, seconder, Councillor Phelan, Councillor Toll, do you wish to speak to that?
I fully support the various people going to that meeting, and I'm even thinking of funding my own way of going there myself. But it's in those situations that you make contacts, build relationships, and get other thoughts of what's going on. So we've allocated the money. I think it'd be very well spent, as long as you come back with some names in your phone.
Thank you, Councillor Toll. Councillor Phelan, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. I also think in-person participation at those sorts of events is really important. It's as much about the conversations you have in the corridors or after formal sessions that really get things moving. It would be great to have kind of a shared agenda that the representatives from council and the CEO take to that session up in Canberra, so that it's very targeted advocacy on matters which are important to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors wish to speak to that? No. I think the other thing that's worth noting is I have previously been to that, and I do see the value in it, especially when it's going to be sitting time in Parliament. So you get the opportunity to actually advocate directly to the ministers and or their advisors, which is really, really important, that face-to-face stuff. The other thing is it's such a great opportunity to network even outside the business hours. You go to lunch, you do whatever, you can network, make some really, really important networking ability and some really important relationships. So it's a good opportunity to make the most of that. So all those in favour? Thank you. 11.4.2 fuel prices, Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide information about the impacts and potential impacts to Pyrenees due to the current fuel crisis. The 2026 Middle East conflict has created a fuel crisis causing global supply disruptions, including conflict affecting all transportation routes. Australia has experienced rising diesel prices and petrol prices and intermittent shortage of supply. Mr. Mayor, there's a report, and councillors, there's a report before you which sets out some of the plans and activities that are happening both at a national and state level, at a local government sector level. The MAB and Rural Councils Victoria are active in this space, advocating and developing strategy. At a Pyrenees level, you'll see within the body of the report that there's considerable potential impacts and real impacts that are affecting council currently. Council have workshopped this significantly. The report outlines some of the current impacts on our activities and impacts in costs associated with road construction, resealing, resheeting, maintenance, waste management, parks and gardens, and some of our project work are all seeing increasing costs in the order of 10 to 25%. Significant future potential impact on our long-term sustainability and our ability to be able to renew and maintain our asset base. Having considered the risks, there are some mitigation measures and strategies to protect council in the short term. In respect of works, where diesel is an important part of the activity and materials that are supplied are also dependent on diesel and transport, the response essentially is about reducing the scope of works to match council's budget. So effectively, we do less road construction, less road maintenance, less road sealing to be able to meet it within our cost. Now, that might be a short-term response, but in the long term, it means a reduction in service to the community, a reduction in the renewal of our assets, and a long-term looming issue unless there's further direct and untied funding for council. Without sort of speaking to all the strategies and the suggested mitigation measures, Mr. Mayor, it is a serious matter. And it's not just affecting council and council operation, it affects our broader community. It's not one business within Pyrenees Shire that's not affected in some way. Farmers are particularly affected through the cost and supply of diesel and fertiliser. And our tourism business is potentially impacted as well, with people choosing not to travel to visit our tourism destination. However, there are opportunities that will flow from this, and there's a reason to be positive as well. The recommendation to council is in 5 parts. Firstly, that council acknowledges the significant impacts of the current fuel prices as outlined in this report. The council continues to work with other agencies and peak bodies to monitor and develop strategic response and mitigation measures as required. Council supports decisions to be made to adjust the scope of capital works projects due to the increased costs, and the council considers any service adjustments that may be needed as part of the 26-27 draft budget process, and the council continues to advocate to government in conjunction with peak bodies.
Thank you, Mr. Knoll. Council's got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Phelan, we've got a seconder. Councillor Keogh, would you like to speak to that? Councillor Phelan? Any councillors wish to speak to that? Councillor Keogh?
No, but I do think, again, we have to be really proactive in this space. We know the impact and the domino effect, and it is important that we've looked at all those different risks, because it's not just about operational costs, looking at the decline in mental health and wellbeing of staff and community when they can't get to places and things get a lot more difficult. So thank you for that report this evening.
Any other councillors wish to speak to that? I think it's we're just going to have to really closely monitor this crisis and revisit it as much as we need to and as often as we need to make necessary decisions to mitigate any risks that we may come across. The other thing is rural councils, Pyrenees in particular, most of our outdoor operational activities include significant travelling. So, just the cost of fuel alone is going to be a significant cost to us without any products. And it's amazing how many products I've sort of had a bit of a realisation that how many products we use on a daily basis that are actually petroleum based or have a petroleum element to them, and they've gone up significantly. And one of those I found out was polypipe. It went up about 70%. So you just don't know until you go to buy it. So I left it where it was. But anyway, that's just all those things that happen. And I feel very sorry for the community who've had this crisis thrust upon them on top of everything else that's already going on, and it's totally out of their controls, and they just feel helpless about it, and they're getting hurt at the pump like everyone else. So I do genuinely feel sorry for the community, but we'll continue to monitor it from an organisational perspective and put any mitigation to mitigate any risks that we come across. So all those in favour? Thank you. That takes us to item 12, councillor reports. Thanks, Mr. Davey. We might go to Mount Emu. Councillor Keogh first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess it's been a very busy time for farmers in the Mount Emu ward. The skies have been evident of that, but also the amount of paddocks and soil that's been tilled as farmers get ready, and we're able to burn off with the finish of the fire ban season. So it's been very, very busy in our neck of the woods. Also, in some ways, a heartening way for many of our farmers who were affected by the fires to be able to see that new growth and to be able to look forward to the new crops as they implement those. And I do, in regards to the fire, continue to thank all the support services for the continued support for our community down at Caringbellic and beyond. But I do urge residents again to continue to reach out for support. Often these efforts, recovery does take a lot longer than we expect. Also, the mental impact of that can also be more apparent a lot longer after the event. So please reach out. There are support services there and ready to act where needed. I also wanted to make a quick, we've talked about advocacy again in our meeting tonight. We are starting to really ramp up, and we know in the media, and we're seeing a lot more prospective elected representatives that will make or break our state government as we're moving closer to those elections. And we will advocate on your behalf as local government, but I do urge every resident too, you have the opportunity to speak to the prospective candidates to talk about the things that really impact us. We all have an opportunity to advocate for our areas. You know, in particular, we've got the ESBF, which is still there and still a very big issue. The cost of living, we've just spoken and had an item on fuel prices. But we want all our representatives to know that regional and rural Victoria is really the backbone of the entire state. So we need our elected representatives to acknowledge this and act on our behalf, and we can all do that and work really strongly together to get the best outcome for our area. The other point I wanted to make to talk about our community that works so well together. We had our Beaufort Secondary College School Council AGM a couple of weeks ago, and it's incredible. This is our only secondary college in the Pyrenees Shire. But what a gem of an asset we have in the community that's there. Also the amazing building works that's happening. We've got a lot of local builders who are working to improve the library area, things like the gym area, so we have a teachable gym area. The school really works hard to be able to give opportunities to all the students there, and it's very much worth a visit. If any of you have time to go check out those new spaces, really well done there. And finally, I'm very much looking forward to the Anzac services that are coming up. One that hasn't been quite as popularised as the others. There is a dawn service at Snake Valley starting at 6:30, so all are welcome to that one. I'll be assisting at that service. I'll be attending the Beaufort one, which of course is incredible. Thank you to all the people that get behind the morning service there. And I'll also be attending a 3 o'clock one at Stockyard Hill. If you haven't managed to make that one, that's an incredibly beautiful little service there at that memorial there. And then I'll also be attending a church memorial where the Stockyard Hill Church was. And this is a new thing, a new memorial that's been erected there. So all are welcome there at 4 o'clock at that space where the old church was. And I do wish everyone well this Anzac weekend, and as we remember those who have served us and continue to serve us to protect the life we get to live. That's all from me.
Thank you, Councillor Keogh. Ursula Doon Ward, Councillor Toll, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to go through everything I've done there, but there's been a couple of pleasing things recently, and it's been exciting as a councillor point of view as to work with the executive team and our planning department and Victorian Motorcycle, our off-road motorcycle, to get their event across the line, so to speak, at Mount Misery on the 3rd of May, which the planning department worked really, really well, and really appreciate the efforts they did to find a way forward and get that event happening, because it's been a successful one for a long time. Encouraging to see the Warborough playground nearly completed. It's really looking fantastic. There's a lot of people stopping there at the moment, and disappointed that it's not finished, but we're getting there. Once again, as Councillor Kerr, looking forward to the local Anzac one and getting down to Lexington at 6 in the morning, and then distributing a couple of wreaths around to the primary schools in the district. And it's great to see local footy and netball back. Not that we don't like cricket, but footy and netball I feel is better and engages more of the community. And it's just really good to see the competition so tight this year. And no doubt the Mayor and I are looking forward to our playoff game. But it's just good to see, you know, if it's not going to rain, we may as well have nice days. So the rain will come, hopefully. So thank you.
Yes, I must get Secretary to remind me to grab some tissues when we come over that game for you. So thank you, Councillor Toll. Councillor Phelan, Decameron Ward, please.
Thank you. I won't go through all of the regular meetings, just to mention a couple of recent highlights. Of course, the fabulous Pyrenees Unearthed that so many councillors were at and which had an absolutely fabulous turnout. Thankfully, it appeared that the fuel crisis didn't impact as much as we might have anticipated, which I think it might have at the Avoca races. There was quite a low turnout at the Avoca races, but really good at Pyrenees Unearthed. And I heard from some of the winemakers that people were coming from really kind of the broad region. So as far as Warrnambool, obviously buses coming in from Beaufort and Ballarat, Echuca. So a really kind of lovely regional attraction for different communities and a great day. It was also lovely to be able to attend yet again the volunteer Fire Brigade Western Championships and to see the competition. I think 22 senior teams, 22 juniors and 13 different brigades fight it out at Lexington. It was a really fantastic event, and as I think I said last year, a great part of my education as a newcomer to regional Victoria, but to see all the equipment that they use and the training steps they go through is fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fionn. Councillor Wardlaw, Avoca Ward.
Yes, so I've been busy attending things here and there. Although I didn't attend, I just want to do a shout out to the Pyrenees Botanic Club on their tournament recently, which just floods the town with visitors. It's just so good to see. Hopefully next year I'll get down there. Also attended the Avoca races there. We had a fantastic afternoon, and our little Shire table had some fun doing some bets and not really succeeding very well. Although I have to thank the Mayor, Mr. Ferrari, Damien, for after having a win on the last, shouting his tea at the Avoca pub afterwards. So that was just the best day. It really was fantastic. Not in our Shire, but I just want to shout out again to the Riola Charity Carnival. I went up there as well, and they had 2,000 through the gate, and I think that is because people weren't travelling as far. So I just make note of that as well for our events. Locals are attending local things, so it's really good to see. The football season started. Best of luck to all the players and clubs, and I'm really planning to attend some games this year, specifically the Avoca versus Natty Alec. And it should be great. As I mentioned earlier, we're looking to have a bit of a dry year again, and the forecasts aren't good. So a lot of pressures on the farmers and the community, not just farmers. So adding to those pressures, it's just not looking good. But I've been communicating with Martha Haylett and Jeff Hayden from Central Highlands Water in regards to sourcing and supplying water for farm use, stock specifically, and other needs where we can in Avoca and surrounds. There's a real lack of water, but we are trying to come up with a resolution. The last thing I want to talk about was just made me think we're talking about resealing roads and potholes and what we've got to cut back on and what we can't do. Times are tough. And I actually had a young man in my post office the other day who was over from Uganda. He works here in Australia. He was doing some work for Australia Post, and I just happened to ask, where are you from? And he said from Uganda. He's at 26. He's been here since he was 16, 7 kids in the family. He's gotten through university. And I said, so do you miss home? And he's basically gone, yeah, no, I do, of course. But then he followed up with, what I love is, because he lives in the city, and he said, what I love is we come out here and I could drive to the country and it was all bitumen roads. I mean, they just don't have that over there, and I just think it's poignant in the way that the world is going, that we count our blessings rather than look at all the negativity. Yes, things will be tough and what have you, but we've got it pretty good over here. And, the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Thank you. I'm not going to go through everything there, but a couple of things I'd like to mention is the Skipton Fire Recovery Network meetings. Well, they're ongoing, and they're really important to particularly the communities that are the community members that are involved in that, so we get a direct conversation with the communities, and you hear it firsthand about their issues and how the fires affect and what the ongoing issues are. So it's really, really important to hear that firsthand message from the community. Had a meeting with Martha Haylett. That was good. It was online, but it was really worthwhile, and we certainly highlighted some of the issues that we needed to highlight, and we'll continue to do that. I also went to the Evoca races. It was a wonderful day. The weather was fantastic, and we had a great seat and had a great day with some of the other councillors. So thank you. A few more people there would have been nice for the committee, but they put on a fantastic show. It was really, really pleasant, and look forward to going back again. May's going to be a very busy time for myself and the CEO. We'll be in Melbourne a lot, doing some direct advocacy with some of the ministers and their advisors and all their advisors. So we'll make the most of all those opportunities for sure, and get as many meetings in as we possibly can. And I just think it was nice to hear what Councillor Wardlaw said, but I just think it's important that we keep a lookout for each other during these difficult times, and just always remember, don't be afraid to ask, are you okay, if you think you need to. Never be afraid to ask that. So that takes us to close your meeting so we can discuss some confidential items. Could I have someone move that we move into confidential, please? Councillor Toll, second. Councillor Key, all those in favour? Thank you. If we could just cease the recording, please.